could I invite the three givers of the talks up to the stage? And Scott, if you'd like to come up as well, and we'll just take some questions, if that's okay.
Is there any plans to expand some of those resources for medical students as well?
Shall I pretend the mic's off now? We'd love to do that. We've looked at some of the kind of basic science curriculum. It's a question of resources. If we had people willing to write the content, we have the kind of technical capability and perhaps the clinical capability to ensure that goes on, and it's good stuff. But it's getting it there in the first place. That's the is that a bit of a swerve, isn't it, really? But we could do it if we had the content, which doesn't really answer anything.
Pandora, I'd like to talk about culture in the immersive department in terms of education. So I think the culture of the department and education go hand in hand. And if you're going to introduce an education fellow, so I gather Leicester was quite low in morale and stuff, and as you've already hinted to, and then obviously the education's improved that. So at what point in the seesaw do you think, so when you introduce an education fellow, from your experience, how long does it take for the seesaw to tip to change the attitude of we can't release staff because there's service provision, nurses can't be released? You know, have you actually seen the seesaw move, and at what point do you introduce yourself?
So I think the seesaw had already started moving by the time I took up my post. But obviously things are usually quite slow to start with, so it took quite a lot of effort to get the things like the education programmes changed. Whereas Darren and I have actually managed to get things changed quite quickly and easily. It's just been a case of, I want to do this, and the consultant said, go do it. So I think that actually that seesaw is starting to tip a bit faster now. So I don't know quite what stage we're at on it, because I can't see into the future. But I think these things are usually quite slow to start with, but once you've built that momentum, then things start moving a lot more quickly.
Thank you.
Pandora, we've had similar experiences in Hull, GMC and HE is always very good. So we sort of, the consultant body within us, we sort of had to do things we've done before, so length of teaching times and all of that. The educational fellow is a brilliant idea. My question to you is, at what grade of trainee would you ask to apply to this? Is it an HSD or someone doing ACCS? And where does the current funding come from? Is it from HE or from the trust?
So currently, so it started out as being a sort of middle grade post, so ST3 and above really. So I'm currently floating somewhere between ST4 and ST5, and Darren had completed his ST3 year when we took up the post. I think it is probably something that needs to be done by middle grade, because obviously you've got that little bit more experience, that little bit more knowledge, and to be able to facilitate all of those workplace-based assessments for the juniors, you need someone who's more senior than them to be able to actually complete them. In terms of the funding, I believe the funding comes from the deanery, but I'm happy to, if Jamie or Dave know any different, I'm happy to be corrected.
Just a question for you again, Pandora. Continuing from that, I'm thinking more about the continuity of this issue, as well as a couple of other points that have been mentioned when we were discussing it in another place. In terms of having the educational fellow be somebody who's not a training doctor, because they tend to slot into the post and then they have to go away, and there's a restart or a reset. And also, they are being paid on a much higher salary scale than say a nurse or somebody else who at the moment could also do that role. Do you have an idea as there would be anything that you found that couldn't be done by a nurse or a paramedic or some ACP or somebody else who is not then going to move on to a training post?
So I think you're right. I think having nursing staff or ANPs have been sort of floated as an idea in Leicester would provide a more better continuity. But I think that there is a lot of work that they could do, but I think it would be more aimed at the nursing staff and the ANP staff, because again, if you're looking to take that role of doing a lot of workplace-based assessments, they can't necessarily do those for the trainees. So having a doctor and an ANP or a nurse running alongside each other would actually give a really good overview of education for the whole department.
Pandora, you clearly get a really rich vein and feeling about this, which is fantastic. Somebody's asked the first 50% before, I wanted to ask you anyway, which is also great for me. I've sort of stumbled into a role similar to yours, and it's been a bit kind of ad hoc, it hasn't kind of worked. So I'm really glad somebody asked about the tipping point and when this kind of becomes things. How do you validate your role? How do you prove it? Because that's the thing that I'm coming to the end of the year doing something very similar, sort of on my top, kind of improvising a lot of it. And the problem now is validating and proving it. Because I can take educational feedback forms and wave them at people, that's fine. But if you haven't had the sort of preemptive slating from GMC, deanery, somewhere, don't need to be derogatory, but if you don't have that platform and then a structure, you can't show that kind of improvement. And in any case, in a purely educationalist context, that's a little statistical. Toying with the idea of doing this with structured interview, toying with the idea of I'm not sure trying to get individual trainees to write back to the deanery. How are you validating it?
So I think firstly, obviously the implementation of all of the stuff that we've been doing is in itself a form of validation. But that's also why we're doing a survey to find out whether, so we did a survey when we started the job, before the introduction of a lot of the stuff that Darren and I have been doing. And then we're currently in the process of redoing that survey to see whether the answers are better, basically, to see whether there has been a perceived improvement in education. And certainly with the EM3 website, Jake's got all of the sort of stats and details for how many hits we have on the website and how many people are using it and from where. So I think that acts as a form of validation as well. If people are using what we're producing externally as well, then that validates the job.
Kirsten, I have a question. It's about where you learn what resources you've used for debriefing. We're looking at it quite a lot at the moment, and as far as I can see, most people seem to be debriefing on the move. Perhaps a tiny wee bit of experiential stuff, and I just wondered what you found useful and point me in that direction so we know about it.
I suppose for starters, I've been doing debriefing for about 10 years, so I've got quite a lot of experiential learning in terms of trying stuff, realising that was totally the wrong way to do it, and then having a go at doing something again. There is now an awful lot of literature that is available on debriefing. A lot of it's from the States or Bywater, I think. If anybody does want anything in terms of actual specific papers, I have an entire file full of papers that I am more than happy to send you. We do run debriefing courses up at the Lancashire Simulation Centre, which is up in Preston. We just revamping the course at the moment, and then we're doing a follow-up course from that as well for experienced debriefers, which we're hoping to have up next year, as in once I've actually written the course completely, we're hoping to launch it.
It's a question for Chris and Pandora. There's obviously quite a proliferation of OMED sites, websites, between you two guys. There's the Arkham site and also EM3 as well. Do you think there's any needless duplication going on there? Is there any thoughts on how you could actually work together more and prevent things like that?
Well, I think just as I kind of alluded to in one of the challenges that we're facing, it's a very good sign, it's the maturity of that particular kind of education movement, that there's so much stuff out there. I think it's gone past the point of people having to almost legitimise it now, in the fact that it's now used so much and it's now so credible that the next stage in its almost evolution is how do we, I think it's stopped duplicating what's out there. So I think the challenge for us and what we were asked about even in the build up to this talking fact was how do we figure out, I can't answer this particular bit yet, but our next challenge, or one of them, is figuring out a way that doesn't reinvent the wheel, because there's so much good stuff out there already. So for example, an easy kind of win for Arkham Learning, for example, would be linking to other sites and other kind of learning networks that are out there via the curriculum, because it's like, why are we bothering to even produce this when other people are doing it better? That's not nicking their stuff, it's just actually signposting to them, because it's there and it's done in a brilliant way.
I think the only thing that I'd add is that, so EM3 does a lot of signposting as well, but I think that different people learn in different ways. So even if you're duplicating a topic, you're not necessarily producing content in the same way. So some people will learn really well from blogs, other people will learn really well from summary sheets, other people will learn really well from infographics. So even if you're producing content on the same topic, you're potentially producing it in a different way that will actually click with somebody that wouldn't have necessarily done it in a different form.
Thank you very much to all three of you. I've just been blown away by the quality of the presentations, the quality of the slides, the humanity, and just how brilliant the three of you have been. So thank you very much for getting us off to a brilliant start.